I love that Disney is finally putting some of the Disney Plus originals out on physical media. Streaming is great for the convenience, but the suppressed quality gets frustrating when you really want to kick back and enjoy the galaxy far, far away. The crushed blacks, digitized motion blur, and flattened audio don't do Star Wars projects full justice. The first of these sets I picked up is the 4K Steelbook of the Obi-Wan Kenobi series. The Steelbook packaging itself is gorgeous. It's solidly constructed with a vibrant print that wraps the whole case. The way the discs are stored is less great. It looks good aesthetically, but the second disc has to slide in behind a plastic tab behind the first disc. Not only do you have to remove one disc to get to the other, but I don't like rubbing discs against anything plastic when trying to put them back in a case. With a 2-disc set in a foldable case, why didn't each disc just get their own side? It's not even a booklet included. This video isn't going to go into every detail of the series or my thoughts on the show as a whole. Instead, we're going to look at the extra features, something else that I really miss now that streaming is the dominant way to watch movies at home. Though I do have to say, rewatching this series in true crisp 4K with deep blacks, vibrant colors, and uncompressed Dolby Atmos was a fantastic experience. The first feature is called Duels of Fate. It primarily focuses on Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen, along with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Anakin, or Vader. It starts with raw footage from the original trilogy of Alec Guinness's Obi-Wan Kenobi beginning his fateful duel with David Prowse's Darth Vader. The footage is pre-VFX, so the lightsabers they're holding are these weird spinning metallic reflexors that early ILM was trying to use to capture the look that George Lucas wanted for the lightsabers. It may seem like a small thing to use footage from this era, but it meant a lot to me. So often the fandom is divided with the eras of the franchise. I do my best to see Star Wars as one whole cohesive unit, so merging the old with the new is exactly what I want it to be. We jump from the 70s into 2004, where Ewan McGregor and Hayden Christensen are training for Revenge of the Sith. George Lucas narrates it, and I was thrilled to see him included, even if it was done in archival footage. We also got a clip of Nick Gillard, the lightsaber choreographing god who should be the first call for any Star Wars project where lightsabers will be wielded. There was a cool bit where different versions of Obi-Wan's hilt is being shown off. The Revenge of the Sith version and the New Hope version are used as bookends. The crew behind Obi-Wan Kenobi the series spent a lot of time getting a great transitional version for the series with some explanations as to the weathering and part changeouts, why they did them. Showrunner Deborah Chow especially wanted Hayden back in the Star Wars universe. The Obi-Wan series isn't just the story of Obi-Wan finding himself again, but the story of the last bits of Anakin Skywalker inside of Darth Vader that we'd see until Return of the Jedi when Luke brings him back out. Seeing Hayden and Ewan train in the combat scenes together was much more emotional than I thought it would be. It was so cool seeing these legends putting in the work to make the battle sequences as good as they could be, along with two friends being reunited after a long period of time. These two people have been such a big part of all of our lives, it was cool to see them together and having fun. There's a fairly detailed breakdown of the scene with Vader's cracked helmet. Chow will revisit this in the one commentary track and give even more context, but there was a lot of thought and care given to this scene. There is acknowledgments that this was done previously in animation, which proved to me that they did at least some of their homework, and the amount of care that they put into it meant a lot to me as a viewer. This is a powerful scene. Say what you will about the series as a whole, this scene works. The featurette finishes with an awesome montage that blends all of the Obi-Wan and Anakin or Vader duels. This run through the past bridges time and was a great hit of nostalgia to end the small documentary. The next featurette is Dark Times, Villains. Chow talks about the pressure she felt to get the live-action version of the Inquisitors right, as they were received so well in animation. She mentions her time working with Filoni on The Mandalorian, and how he made himself available to her for consultations on nailing the characters in live action. I still maintain that the Grand Inquisitor could have used a small head prosthetic to stretch his head out a little bit more, but otherwise, I think the look and feel of the characters was a success. A small mention was made of a note in the script that said that the Grand Inquisitor was someone who loved the sound of his own voice. This one line says so much about him and gave the actor such a fun direction to take the character in. I'm sure I'll hear about this in the comments section, but bear with me. I liked the details on Reva and her complex past. I actually like the idea of Reva as a character. I understand she changes some lore of no one knowing that Vader is Anakin Skywalker, but there are other stories where characters either know, find out, or have some inclination about his real identity. If Reva didn't take up so much room in Obi-Wan's series and was introduced in a more appropriate place, her character would not have received nearly as much backlash. She also shouldn't be immune to lightsaber stabbings. If she actually died when she took her shot against Vader, it would have been a lot more realistic and more true to Vader. Okay, sorry, I'm already digressing a little too far and we're only on the second featurette. The featurette gives credit to the Jedi Fallen Order game for the Fortress Inquisitorius scene as well. Another nice moment that shows that they did their homework. I'm not exactly sure why the in-universe Inquisitors still let people just swim into their fortress, but we'll move past it. A surprising amount of the sets were actually created. I thought a ton of this show, given the incredibly limited budget, was done on the volume. One scene that was done on the volume was the Inquisitor boardroom. Chow wanted the oppressive light from the murky water around them to impose itself on the scene. And I gotta say, watching this in the true 4K that the set offered, it works. The volume is so cool as a piece of technology. There was one scene that I was convinced was done on the volume, but was actually completely legit. They built the whole thing, and that's the Vader back-to-tank scene. They physically built the room and the tank, and even filled the tank with liquid. To go one step further, they didn't give Hayden any kind of breathing apparatus. They didn't want bubbles in the Bacta. Hayden, in full prosthetic, actually went into the tank and just held his breath. He held his breath for the scenes, and he even says the longest breath hold he did was an astounding 2.5 minutes. That shows some devotion. Hayden is no joke. One choice Chow made for the series that I understand, but I'm not sure I agree with, is having a much more mobile Vader. They redesigned Vader's suit to match the original aesthetic, but they purposely made it so that Hayden Christensen could move more easily and more fluid in it. I get it with the advancements in costuming and the fact that Hayden delivers in his performance and does a lot of the action stuff himself, but lore-wise, the suit was purposely designed by Palpatine to keep Vader on a short leash, especially with the reasoning that Vader is younger in this series than in the original trilogy. Being half machine and having regular back-to-bats that heal his body, along with the purpose of the suit that was supposed to keep him down, it negates a more mobile version. A cool direction choice Chow implemented, and that is mentioned a few times throughout the extra features, Chow would play the scores on set so the actors could feel the iconic music and use it in their performance. The final featurette is called Designing the Galaxy. Straight away, there are conversations about honoring the look and feel of the universe that George Lucas created. I'll never stop appreciating these sentiments, and I'll never stop calling attention to them. Another set I assumed was largely digital, but was actually fully built, was Obi-Wan's cave on Tatooine. They built it with foam and had a full-sized physical set for him to walk around in. When it was time for the production crew to design Alderaan, the set designers looked at the very brief glimpses we got in Revenge of the Sith, but then they went to the legendary Ralph McQuarrie's artwork. McQuarrie is incredible. I don't think other franchises have such iconic concept art that is released in such abundance. A lot and time and care was put into the creation of Lola. I don't know if the droid was supposed to have a larger role, but in the final product, it didn't do a lot to serve Leia as a character and boiled down to a toy to sell to kids and a plot device. Since this show finished airing, I've heard some criticisms of the set where Vader and Obi-Wan first encounter each other again. Originally, there was supposed to be an otherworldly field with massive blades of grass. It was supposed to have a very samurai look and feel to it. Now, Chow thought this setting would overpower the characters, that the setting would be almost too beautiful and take the attention off of what was going on. She purposely chose a more subdued area. I actually like this choice. I like the industrial look because it's not a pretty world. This is a world that is being ravaged by the Empire so early in their reign. Another detail I thought was cool was any real-world sets used were there so the actors would have something to play off of and feel like they were in a more real world, but were also enhanced to make them feel more Star Wars. Chow described this as the 80-20 rule, 80% real and 20% enhancement. Each location throughout the series was done with either a warm or cool color palette. These alternated purposely until the final episode when the rocky moon where Vader and Obi-Wan have their final confrontation. This location has both palettes that meet in the middle at the horizon. I love color theory. Moving into the single commentary track that we get in this DVD set, I was a little bummed. I planned on rewatching the entire series with a commentary track over each episode. I would have been happy with at least a Deborah Chow talking about each episode, but in a perfect world, we would have gotten 2 commentaries per episode, one with the in front of the camera talent and one with the creative team behind it. Here are my favorite tidbits from the single commentary track that was available. It's Deborah Chow talking about the final episode. The whole series was approached with the thought of having to hand things off to A New Hope. Good place to start, good thing to be aware of. As the series progresses, Vader's judgment is compromised because of his personal feelings toward Obi-Wan. This also tracks. It makes a lot of sense for Anakin, who was always very emotional, which partly led to his downfall. It's not just a good versus evil story, things are very personal. A lot of the series was shot in sequence. Chow did this wherever possible so the actors could feel the progression of their characters. This was especially important for Ewan McGregor and Vivian Lyra Blair, who played the young Leia. They really bonded over the 6-month shoot, so at the end, when they have to part ways, the emotions hit a lot harder. Not only did Chow pipe in score for the actors' benefit, but the sound effect in certain scenes gave the actors something to play off of. She talks about this in the scene where Obi-Wan is talking to Roka as they're on a shuttle that's under fire by the Imperials, and they're running away with the path. Chow would consult with Filoni about the look of the Inquisitors. We covered that, but I still think it's cool that he is now the chief creative officer, but at the time, he wasn't. He was just a dude who loved Star Wars doing what he could. The whole crew approached the series with a less is more attitude to Darth Vader's involvement. Having the Inquisitors as villains helped keep a villain in the story, helped keep the stakes feel high without overusing Vader. The more he's overused, the more he's kind of diluted. He should be like a boogeyman lurking in the shadows and just being badass in his limited screen time, like at the end of Rogue One. Chow talked about her experience working on The Mandalorian as part of the creative team. Her experience there helped her understand the nuances of performances in full armor suits with a faceless main character. She was able to direct Hayden in the Vader suit to make small adjustments to convey a deeper performance, whether it was the way he walked or at the end when he leans a little bit back in his chair when he's talking to Palpatine. That's a man who's accepting his place in the galaxy, accepting the choices he made and having to live with them, giving up on his personal pursuits. These little things go a long way when someone is covered head to toe in armor. When it came to Obi-Wan and Vader, Chow wanted to reference iconic lines we all know from the existing movies, but didn't want to be too on the nose. She didn't want to repeat any of them. I also like this choice. We know the iconic lines, we're going to get the references to them, but repeating them would cheapen them, not just for the series, but when you rewatch the movies that we all know and love so well. At the time of their final duel, when Obi-Wan is nearly complete again, he and Vader are equals. Not only that, but no one else could go toe-to-toe with either of them. This is a clash of titans that only the two of them could be involved in. I thought that was a cool touch as this entire series built up to this moment. The scene in the final confrontation where Vader throws Obi-Wan into the pit has a lot of meaning. Firstly, the people behind the camera wanted Vader to once again occupy the high ground, but Chow specifically said she didn't want him to say it. The scene was important for Obi-Wan because he was buried. He had to become fully reconnected with the Force and become his old self fully to get out of this. The resurrection metaphor is a bit on the nose, but it's still awesome. Large parts of the set were rigged so the rocks would actually be destroyed during filming. This makes the effects more realistic, as practical effects always age better than digital, but it also gave the actors something to react to. Chow wanted to show Owen and Beru Lars working together to stand up against Reva. For me, Owen's line, "He is my own," changes Owen entirely. I even see the 1977 version played by Phil Brown in a new light with this one line in this one show. To recreate the Lars homestead, plans were used from the original Star Wars. Chow said she always wondered why no one ever went after Vader's life support system, so she had Obi-Wan do it. I think this adds a ton to the scene. And Chow didn't say this part, but it's either me reading through the lines or just putting my own thoughts on it. Not only is it cool that someone finally exploited this weakness, but it also shows that Obi-Wan Kenobi can see past the intimidating suit to the man inside it. Other people might have been too afraid or think that Vader is too untouchable to do something like this, but Obi-Wan knew that his old fallen friend Anakin was inside that suit of armor, and taking out this computer could be the key to his downfall. There's credit given to the Vader cracked mask thing being done in animation previously. Chow said that this was one of her favorite scenes in the entire series. She also said that the emotions behind Ewan and Hayden's performances were as real as they could be given the actor's history and due to the fact that much of this series, as I mentioned, was shot in sequence. Not unique to this series, but something that I've been loving in more modern Star Wars projects, are the modern lightsaber props allow the glow to be done on set. For example, the red light being more or less intense on Anakin's face as he is both Anakin and Vader with the cracked helmet is all Hayden's acting in moving the lit blade further or closer. It's awesome. Chow also mentioned that the two of them went at it so much that they broke several lightsaber props. I thought this was awesome because I remember hearing about Ray Park's Darth Maul and a very young Ewan McGregor as Obi-Wan in The Phantom Menace would bend their stunt lightsabers at 90-degree angles so new ones had to be given because they were going at that duel so intensely. Speaking of the awesome moment with the cracked mask, Chow knew she wanted the voice to be both Anakin and Vader. She had Hayden play the scene straight up as Anakin on the day, and then had the sound designers mix in the iconic Vader voice with the cracked breathing and the modulator going in and out as needed. I still maintain Reva should have died when she confronted Vader, but Chow does talk about wanting Reva to have her own agency to make the decision to not kill Luke Skywalker. It is a full circle character moment, I guess, if you can look at it objectively. I just think there was a little bit too much of her, and her constant survival made people like her even less. I also don't really love that the fate of the entire galaxy and the fate of Luke Skywalker was left up to this person seeing the light and not wanting to become the monster they were hunting. I do understand it all, I'm just not sure I agree. Chow purposely withheld using Vader's iconic theme until the very end of the series, after he talked to the hologram of Palpatine. This moment was Vader going all in on following Palpatine and leaving his personal vendetta behind, as much as Vader can. Using the theme was the cue that this was the Vader we would meet in A New Hope. Everyone was also thrilled to have Anne McDermott back on set. Another of Chow's favorite scenes is the final conversation between Obi-Wan and Leia. There was a lot of care put into how this would go down to not make waves with how they are with each other in A New Hope. Obi-Wan leaving his cave home to presumably find the hut he would be living in during A New Hope. This was Obi-Wan giving Luke some space, letting him have his own life to a degree, but also showing that Obi-Wan was putting some faith in the future. A camel was used as a stand-in for Obi-Wan's Eope so that Ewan McGregor had something to ride other than a blue or green pommel horse. They spent a lot of time together and Ewan almost kept the camel. Chow laughed talking about camels being able to live 50 years and Ewan maybe wasn't ready to take care of such a weird animal for so long. Part of the inspiration for Obi-Wan's look at the end of the series was taken from the Sideshow Collectibles Mythos statue. I love Sideshow Collectibles, and what a cool nod to something kind of outside the Star Wars universe. Sideshow obviously has the right to do it in the licensing, but it's not a LucasArts thing. The script had Obi-Wan's iconic "hello there" in many different places over the course of the series. Saving it for when he met Luke was Chow's call, and yeah, I think she made the right choice. She says that it worked pretty much everywhere they tried it, but she knew she wanted it to work the best, and this was the place. Chow was thrilled to get Liam Neeson back as Qui-Gon Jinn. Not just to have the iconic Jedi show up, but also to reunite Ewan and Liam. This was another indication that Obi-Wan was back to his old self and not so haunted by his past. He was now ready to move on and do as Yoda instructed him. Chow worked on the series for 3 years before it was done being shot. The way Chow signs off on this single commentary track really makes it sound like she had recorded more than one. They should have been part of the set, and if she didn't record more than one, why not? While the extras weren't as plentiful as I would have wanted or expected, I do like what we got. It only took about an hour and a half to get through everything, and that includes watching the final episode with commentary. So that was a bit of a letdown. I thought I'd be into it for at least 2-3 hours. I'm still happy with the purchase, and I'll say it one more time. It all looks and sounds so good. Check out this video next for more from the Star Wars universe.